The Zyxlar Dominion was a species of unyielding precision. Their fleets moved with the elegance of clockwork, their armies operated with mechanical discipline, and their collective philosophy could be summarized as, eliminate what you don't understand. For centuries, this simple approach had made them one of the most feared powers in the galaxy. So, when their long-range scanners detected Earth, a planet bursting with life yet technologically underwhelming, the Zyxlar High Command saw an opportunity. Earth was primitive, scattered, and woefully disorganized, a perfect candidate for assimilation into the Dominion. Strike during their weakest moment, Fleet Commander Zyxlar had ordered. Their celebrations will distract them. They won't see us coming. The plan seemed flawless. The Zyxlar Dominion had pinpointed the perfect moment to invade Earth. December 31st, a date their intelligence described as a planet-wide festival. Little did the Zyxlars know they were about to misinterpret Earth's most joyous occasion as a declaration of war. As the Zyxlar fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, their highly sensitive scanners picked up strange signals. Explosions, millions of them, rang out across the planet, rapid and seemingly synchronized. The bridge of the flagship Unyielding Dominance descended into chaos as officers scrambled to analyze the data. "Commander," Thynix, Zyxlar's second-in-command, said with alarm, "we're detecting widespread detonations across all major landmasses." Zyxlar, a hulking figure with glistening blue scales and a crown of angular ridges on his head, leaned forward in his command chair. His eye stalks swiveled toward the nearest tactical display. "What kind of detonations?" "Uncertain," Thynix admitted, his wiry frame tense. "The patterns are erratic, but the frequency, it's as if they're coordinated." Zyxlar's scales darkened, a sign of mounting frustration. Humans lack the technology for a coordinated defense. These explosions must be accidents or misfires. Proceed with the invasion. "Yes, Commander." The fleet descended further, their massive ships cutting through the atmosphere with a low, ominous hum. But the closer they got, the more unsettling the situation became. Thynix's voice quivered as he monitored the scanners. "Commander, the explosions. They're accompanied by unusual vocalizations. Cheers. Laughter." Zyxlar's eye stalks snapped toward Thynix. "Laughter? Are you suggesting they're celebrating our arrival?" "No, Commander," Thynix said quickly. "I believe they're mocking us." The idea was absurd, but the data didn't lie. Across the planet, humans were gathering in massive groups, clinking glasses, and shouting in unison as corks popped from champagne bottles. "Deploy shields," Zyxlar ordered, his voice low and cold. "Prepare the fleet for evasive maneuvers. If humans think they can intimidate us with these primitive fireworks, they're gravely mistaken." On Earth, the celebration was in full swing. In bustling city squares and quiet suburban backyards, humans raised their glasses high, toasting to the arrival of the new year. The popping of champagne corks filled the air, a festive sound that had delighted generations. But to the Zyxlar fleet, it sounded like the first volley of an unprecedented counterattack. "Commander," Thynix said, his claws clicking nervously on the console, "we've identified the source of the detonations. They're coming from small cylindrical objects, possibly handheld launchers." Zyxlar's scales darkened further. "Handheld launchers? Are you saying these humans are armed?" Thynix hesitated. "It's unclear. The devices appear to eject projectiles at high velocity, followed by a release of liquid." "Liquid? Possibly chemical warfare," Thynix suggested grimly. The bridge of the Unyielding Dominance went silent as the implications sank in. In reality, the Zyxlar's drones were observing humans popping champagne corks and pouring bubbly liquid into fluted glasses. But the Zyxlars had no context for this behavior. To them, it looked like an elaborate display of coordination, a warning to invaders. The bridge of the Unyielding Dominance was a flurry of activity as the fireworks began. The tactical display lit up with heat signatures from thousands of explosions, their colors bright and varied. "Commander," an officer called from the scanning station, "the explosions. They're not targeting us directly. They're decorative." Zyxlar narrowed his eye stalks. "Decorative. Don't be naive. They're displaying their strength, showing us what they're capable of." The Zyxlar fleet hovered in Earth's atmosphere, their ships casting ominous shadows over the planet below. On board the flagship Unyielding Dominance, the mood was tense. The tactical screens were flooded with data that defied interpretation. "Commander," Thynex said cautiously, his claws tapping against the console, "the explosions are escalating. We've detected heat signatures in the upper atmosphere." Zyxlar's eye stalks swiveled toward the main viewport, where the night sky over Earth shimmered with bursts of color. "What is that?" Zyxlar demanded, his voice low and filled with suspicion. "Unknown," Thynex replied. "It appears to be some kind of aerial bombardment. But the patterns are illogical, and the colors—" "They're showing off," Zyxlar interrupted, his scales darkening. "This is psychological warfare. They're trying to confuse us with their artillery artistry." "Commander," an officer called out, "the explosions are synchronized with loud noises and rhythmic vibrations. We're detecting elevated energy signatures in urban centers." "Vibrations?" Zyxlar's voice was sharp. "Yes, Commander," the officer confirmed. "It's as if they're celebrating the destruction." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Thynex's voice broke the quiet. "Commander, if I may, their tactics don't make sense. Why would they use their most advanced weaponry for spectacle rather than precision strikes? Why waste such firepower?" Zyxlar's eye stalks fixed on his second-in-command. "Because they don't fear us. They're taunting us, Thynex. They want us to see how easily they could destroy us, but they're choosing not to. This is a species that fights with style." As the Zyxlars debated the nature of humanity's celebration-based warfare, the humans below were entirely oblivious. Meanwhile, the Zyxlars' scanners detected an alarming surge in energy. "Commander," an officer called out, "the detonations are increasing in intensity. Heat signatures are off the charts." "Evade," Zyxlar barked. "Move the fleet to higher orbit. We cannot risk direct confrontation with such advanced weaponry." The massive ships of the Zyxlar fleet began to ascend, their engines roaring as they retreated from what they believed to be a coordinated counteroffensive. As they climbed higher, the reconnaissance drones deployed earlier began transmitting footage back to the fleet. The images were baffling. Humans were gathered in dense crowds, raising glasses of liquid and shouting joyfully. As midnight struck in each time zone, the humans erupted into cheers. The Zyxlars, still observing from their drones, interpreted this as a unified battle cry. "Commander," Thynex said quietly, "these humans, they're not afraid. They've seen our fleet, and yet they celebrate. What kind of species welcomes war with fireworks and laughter?" "The kind we should fear," Zyxlar replied grimly. "These aren't just warriors. They're artists of destruction. We've underestimated them." The bridge of the Unyielding Dominance was silent as the Zyxlars watched the footage. Fireworks lit up the skies, champagne corks popped like miniature explosions, and humans hugged, kissed and cheered as if the galaxy itself were theirs to command. Zyxlar slumped into his chair, his scales dull with realization. "They're not just fighting us, Thynex. They're celebrating their victory before we've even fired a shot." Thynex's voice trembled. "What do we do, Commander?" Zyxlar's eye stalks swiveled toward the tactical display, where Earth glowed with light and chaos. "We regroup, retreat to a safe distance and observe. We need to understand their celebration-based weapons before we make another move." As the Zyxlar fleet ascended further into orbit, the humans continued their celebrations, blissfully unaware of the invaders who had mistaken their joy for a declaration of war. The Zyxlar fleet floated in high orbit, their sleek ships cloaked in shimmering energy shields. On board the flagship unyielding Dominance, the mood was grim. The humans' supposed arsenal of celebratory weapons had shaken the crew's confidence. Now, their best hope lay in analyzing the reconnaissance drone footage to uncover the true nature of Earth's defenses. "Commander," Thynex said cautiously, "we've isolated a particularly troubling activity." He gestured toward a holographic screen that displayed footage of a human celebration. The image zoomed in on a crowd of revelers holding strange cylindrical objects. The humans laughed and shouted as they tilted the objects upward. With a sudden pop, a cork shot into the air, followed by a spray of liquid. The crowd erupted into cheers, clinking glasses filled with the same golden liquid. "What in the cosmos is that?" Zyxlar muttered, leaning forward in his command chair. Thynex adjusted the playback. "We believe it's some sort of chemical projectile system. The liquid could be a biological agent or acid-based weaponry. Observe the joy with which they launch it." The bridge crew stared in horrified fascination. "They're drinking it?" an officer exclaimed, his voice quivering. Zyxlar's eye stalks swiveled toward the officer. "Do not be deceived. This could be a display of resilience. They're ingesting their own weaponized liquids to show us they're immune to its effects." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Commander," Thynex said hesitantly, "should we send additional drones to confirm their capabilities?" Zyxlar shook his head. "No. They'd detect us. We must assume the worst. Humans have developed a projectile weapon that doubles as biological warfare and morale-boosting sustenance." The footage continued, showing humans launching corks from champagne bottles with increasing frequency. A drone captured a particularly lively party, where corks popped in rapid succession, the sound echoing through the night. "Commander," another officer said, "we're detecting thousands of similar detonations across the planet. The velocity of the projectiles is low, but the sheer volume—" "They're creating a synchronized barrage," Zyxlar interrupted, his voice grim. "Humans are demonstrating their ability to launch coordinated attacks on a global scale. The noise alone is enough to disorient lesser species." Thynex nodded. "A psychological weapon. Ingenious." The footage then shifted to a human celebration in a massive city square. A drone zoomed in on a towering countdown clock as the numbers ticked towards 0. The humans chanted in unison, their voices growing louder as the clock reached its final seconds. When it struck midnight, the crowd erupted into cheers. Fireworks exploded overhead, champagne corks flew, and humans embraced each other with a level of exuberance that left the Zyxlars speechless. "Commander," Thynex said, his voice trembling, "these humans, they celebrate destruction." Zyxlar's scales darkened, a sign of deep unease. "No, Thynex, they celebrate domination. They're not afraid of us. They're demonstrating their superiority." As the bridge crew absorbed the footage, a new transmission arrived from one of the drones. It displayed a close-up of a human holding a champagne bottle. The human pointed it directly at the camera, their face alight with joy. With a sudden pop, the cork struck the drone, causing the feed to cut out. The bridge descended into chaos. "Commander," an officer shouted, "we've lost contact with Drone 7. "They're targeting our reconnaissance units," Thynex exclaimed. "Their weapons may be primitive, but their precision is terrifying." Zyxlar clenched his claws. "Enough. We've seen all we need to. Humans are unpredictable, chaotic, and clearly dangerous. We must reconsider our strategy before engaging further." On Earth, the humans continued their celebrations, blissfully unaware of the invading fleet. In backyards and city squares, champagne bottles popped, fireworks lit up the sky, and laughter filled the air. But to the Zyxlars, this was the prelude to a war unlike any they had ever faced. "Commander," Thynex said quietly as the bridge crew worked to recalibrate their scanners, "do you think it's possible we misunderstood them? That this isn't an act of aggression?" Zyxlar's eye stalks swiveled toward his second-in-command, his expression grim. Misunderstood. Look at them, Thynix. They launch projectiles and chemical sprays with glee. They detonate colorful explosives for amusement. If this is how they celebrate, imagine what they're capable of in war. Thynix nodded reluctantly. You're right, Commander. Humans are a threat unlike anything we've encountered. The Zyxlar fleet prepared to retreat, their confidence shaken by the chaotic brilliance of humanity's celebration-based weaponry. As they ascended to safer orbit, Zyxlar made one final note in his report. Earth, a planet of unparalleled chaos. Recommend extreme caution. Avoid direct confrontation. The Zyxlar fleet hovered in the silence of high orbit, far enough from Earth's chaotic celebrations to escape the thunderous echoes of champagne corks and fireworks, but close enough to see the planet's surface shimmering with light. On board the flagship Unyielding Dominance, the bridge was eerily quiet. The officers worked in hushed tones, as if speaking too loudly might attract humanity's attention. Fleet Commander Zyxlar sat in his command chair, his eye stalks fixed on the holographic map of Earth. The images of humans popping champagne corks, clinking glasses, and launching fireworks replayed in his mind like a taunting reminder of his fleet's helplessness. Status report, Zyxlar said, his voice low and clipped. Thynix stepped forward, his wiry frame tense. Commander, the fleet is intact. No casualties, no damage to the ships. However, the psychological impact on the crew is significant. Zyxlar's scales darkened further. Elaborate. Thynix hesitated. Many of the crew are questioning our ability to engage with a species that displays such reckless confidence. Their celebration-based arsenal has caused widespread unease. The officers are particularly disturbed by their apparent disregard for conventional warfare logic. As Thynix spoke, the holographic display shifted to show Earth's surface once again. Fireworks continued to light up the skies, their colorful bursts creating intricate patterns that seemed almost deliberate. The humans were still laughing, cheering, and embracing each other, entirely unaware of the chaos they had caused in the Zyxlar fleet. Commander, an officer interrupted, his claws trembling slightly as he gestured toward the display. The detonations are ongoing. We estimate at least another 6 hours of celebration activity. Zyxlar's eye stalks twitched. 6 hours. They have the resources to sustain this chaos for that long? Thynix cleared his throat. It appears so, Commander. And the intensity of their detonations increases with each time zone. This behavior suggests an extraordinary level of coordination. The crew shifted uncomfortably as Zyxlar stood, his towering form casting a shadow over the bridge. He gestured toward the display, his voice heavy with frustration. This is not coordination, Thynix. This is dominance. They're showing us that they can afford to waste resources on spectacle, that their idea of war is art. Thynix glanced at the hologram, where humans in brightly lit streets were holding sparklers and laughing. And yet, Commander, they seem so happy. Zyxlar turned sharply, his eye stalks narrowing. That's what makes them terrifying. Only a species utterly confident in its superiority would laugh in the face of potential annihilation. They're sending us a message. Leave, or we'll make you part of the show. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Officers exchanged uneasy glances, their claws tapping nervously against their consoles. Finally, Thynix broke the silence. Commander, if I may suggest, retreating would be the most logical course of action. We need time to study their behavior and understand their celebration-based weaponry before we risk further engagement. Zyxlar stared at the hologram for a long moment, the colorful bursts of fireworks reflected in his dark scales. You're right, Thynix. We underestimated these humans. They've shown us a level of chaos we can't match, and won't survive if we challenge it. The order to retreat was given. The massive ships of the Zyxlar fleet powered up their engines, their hum reverberating through the silence of space. One by one, they ascended away from Earth, leaving behind the planet that had defied all logic and expectations. But even as the fleet departed, the Zyxlars couldn't help but feel that they had narrowly escaped a far greater threat than they'd ever imagined. Back on Earth, the humans continued their New Year's celebrations, completely unaware of the galactic drama they had unwittingly caused. In bustling cities and quiet homes, champagne corks popped, fireworks exploded, and laughter echoed into the night. For the Zyxlars, however, the experience left an indelible mark. As the fleet regrouped in a distant star system, Zyxlar sat alone in his quarters, drafting his report for the High Command. Report: Earth Invasion Attempt Assessment. Hostile Potential. Humans possess advanced psychological and chemical weaponry disguised as celebration rituals. Behavioral analysis: unpredictable, chaotic, and utterly fearless. Recommendation: avoid direct confrontation. Further study required to assess the full scope of Earth's capabilities. Conclusion: Earth is a planet of unfathomable chaos. Avoid at all costs. As the Zyxlar fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, the humans below unknowingly solidified their reputation as one of the most terrifying species in the galaxy, simply by celebrating the new year.